So, what are the origins of the claim that Hitler was a Jew? Well, there were two completely separate claims, the first of which was believed by quite a few people, including intelligent ones, so you don't need to feel too bad if you believe this one. Now, the source of this claim is a man named Hans Frank, who was Hitler's lawyer, and he was sentenced to death at Nuremberg. Now, while awaiting execution, he wrote his memoirs. In his memoirs, he claims that Hitler came to him with a letter of extortion from a family member. Now, this letter was threatening to expose Hitler as a Jew. Hitler, of course, was quite disturbed by this and asked Frank to investigate. Now, Frank came back to Hitler, claiming to have found a bunch of correspondence between Maria Anna Schicklgruber, Hitler's grandmother, and some Jews living in Graz, Austria, where Maria was supposedly a cook, by the name of Frankenberger. Now, he goes on to claim that in these letters, Maria is asking for child support, and she gets it, because the Frankenbergers apparently believe that, yes, her son, Alois Hitler, Adolf Hitler's father, was in fact the illegitimate child of one of the Frankenbergers. Now, the problem with this claim is that there is absolutely no evidence to back it up. In fact, there's a fair bit of contradictory evidence. It has been investigated, and it turns out that there were no Jews in Graz at the time. And there were no Frankenbergers, period. The records have been thoroughly searched, to the point that some historians, they're willing to say it's completely false, it's 100% ruled out. Other historians, like this one, John Toland, who wrote the definitive biography on Hitler, that's not just him claiming it, by the way, lots of people acknowledge this, he writes that the odds are minimal. Now, you can decide, but really, he wasn't a Jew. Now, if you believe Hitler was a Rothschild, you probably have your own drool all over your shirt right now because, well, that is some serious Ring of Power, David Icke nonsense. It's ridiculous. Where they got that idea is from this book here, Inside the Gestapo, by Hans-Jürgen Kohler. Now, who is Hans-Jürgen Kohler? I'm not sure. I'll get into who I think it is later, but I'll tell you who I know it's not. He is not some Gestapo agent who ran away from the Third Reich to write this book exposing them as being silly and weak. Well, it obviously is a propaganda piece written by somebody who doesn't like the Third Reich, and the book is designed to make the Third Reich look silly and weak. Now, what are the main clues here that it is a big piece of BS? Well, for one, right in the introduction, he goes on about how the Germans are starving and they're barely have any food and all this kind of stuff. That is nonsense. 1939 Germany was the richest country in the world per capita. Yeah, they had their Great Depression in the 20s, 30s actually saw a lot of growth for them. Yeah, they were not poor. In fact, I have read plenty of first-hand accounts of soldiers entering Germany in 1945 and still finding large stores of food in these German households. That's point one. Next, we got exaggerated claims about 12-year-old daughters ratting out their father for just saying one negative thing about the Third Reich and then off to the concentration camps for them. Yeah, Hitler, he was pretty bad and everything, but that is exaggerated. That's a minor point, though. There is one very true thing that he says in the introduction of this book, which is parts of this book read like a cheap thriller. Now, that is very true. There's one chapter, it's all about this scientist, who he doesn't name, that was offering to sell, again, unnamed scientific secrets to the Third Reich, but then he decided no, he was going to go somewhere else, and he disappeared, and the Gestapo, of course, was looking for him, and naturally, since they couldn't find him there, he thought, well, he must be in a concentration camp, he must be hiding in one. So, Hans-Jürgen Kohler was charged with going into a concentration camp and finding him. Now, the chapter, the whole thing's all about how horrible it is in a concentration camp, which is no exaggeration, of course. But the point is, again, making Germany look horrible. It's anti-German propaganda. Oh, by the way, I'm not suggesting that anti-German propaganda is a bad thing in general. It's just wrong, factually. Now, at the very end of the chapter, he apparently finds this scientist in the hospital, and sure enough, he befriends him, and the guy tells him all the scientific secrets, because Hans-Jürgen Kohler is this great guy that everybody loves, and people want to reveal their greatest secrets to him in a matter of moments after meeting them. Yeah, again, just silly. Now, as far as the claim goes that Hitler was a Rothschild, he says that the Austrian premier, or chancellor, sorry, Schuschnigg, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm not German, it's a weird name anyway, he had these files and he was threatening to release them, and so Hans-Jürgen Kohler had to go retrieve them and destroy them before Hitler could invade Austria. Otherwise, Schuschnigg would just reveal all these secrets. Now, in order to do so, Hans-Jürgen Kohler, he enlisted the help of Countess Vera Frug, I think, who, as far as I can tell, is made up. Did a quick Google search, couldn't find her. Doesn't matter, though. She was apparently the lover of Schuschnigg, and she betrayed him completely, and yeah, They ended up getting the documents anyway, and at the very end, they show this little, or he writes about this little conversation between Vera and Schuschnigg, which he had no way of being privy to. I mean, yeah. Anyway, Schuschnigg asks her, "Why did you betray me?" Because she just out and out admitted it. And she says, "Well, I didn't want you to be chancellor anymore. I wanted you all to myself." And so naturally, Schuschnigg just forgives her and then gets carted away to a concentration camp. Yeah. Now, another thing, Schuschnigg actually survived the war and later became a professor. And guess what? He never, ever, ever wrote about Hitler being a Rothschild or these documents, ever. So, the whole thing's ridiculous, basically. Yeah, but Walter Langer believes it, and he's big-time smart. You could be thinking that, but that means you're big-time stupid. See, Walter Langer was hired by the U.S. Army to do a psychological profile of Hitler. And in this documentary, Inside the Mind of Hitler, based on his work, he has this to say about the sources he studied.
Furthermore, it's almost a foregone conclusion that a lot of the information we're going to dig up is going to prove to be untrustworthy and irrelevant.
In fact, in this entire documentary, he doesn't even mention the more reliable Frankenberger claims. So, yeah, there goes that one. But, oh no, he writes about in his book, you might be thinking. Well, you'd actually be kind of right. He says, according to Tyson, not sure how to pronounce it, German name, not good with them, and Kohler, and he goes on to say, the Austrian Chancellor had these documents, blah, blah, blah. But then he goes on to say, well, there's no evidence to back this up, really. I mean, we shouldn't give these claims any weight. Now, the Tyson he was referring to was Fritz Tyson. Now, Fritz, he had to flee Germany just before the outbreak of war because he realized that, well, mass murder wasn't such a great idea. And Hitler was pretty mad at him, and he seized the property. So, yeah, there's his motive. Also, in the book here, it does say I'm writing this in my hotel room in Switzerland, and yeah, that happens to be where Fritz fled to. Now, this book was published London 1940, January 1940. So, it may have been purely a British intelligence idea just to make Hitler look silly, but I believe Fritz had a hand in it. I'm pretty sure he is the author. Now, if you have watched this and said, you know what, that makes sense. Ring of Power is stupid. Then congratulations. There's hope for you. However, if you're still thinking, no, David Icke and Ring of Power are awesome, you don't know what you're talking about, then you're probably almost in a coma and your mom has to wipe your bum. I mean, seriously, it's ridiculous. Ring of Power goes on to claim that Hitler only killed Khazar Jews. I made a vid about that too. There's no such thing as Khazar Jews. And that he shipped off all the good Jews to Norway because the Norwegian family is actually Jews. The whole thing's ridiculous. I mean, seriously. Ring of Power losers are the biggest morons on the planet. I truly hope you do not include yourself in that category.